we got to start talking about five-star quarterback Jared Curtis, formerly committed to Georgia, officially down to two schools in his recruitment, Georgia being one, Oregon being the other. At the beginning of the month, when he narrowed down to those top two, he had his sights set on a 1 week stretch of visits where he was going to be at both Auburn and Georgia. That was last week. And so really, the focus of this episode is talking about Jared Curtis and what does it mean? What happens next? I think that both Oregon and Georgia are at a little bit of a standstill from a recruiting standpoint until they get word from Jared Curtis and what his decision is. So he started out last week. He was at Oregon for 3 to 4 days. He hasn't been out to Eugene, Oregon nearly as many times as he's been to Athens. So it was a really important opportunity for him to get out west, check out Dan Lanning's program. I would say coming into the month, I would probably have considered Oregon the favorite. That's a key reason why he was not in my first mock class 1.0 that I put out at the beginning of the month. They have some financial advantages that Kirby Smart has alluded to through the last year about the treasure troves of Nike that Dan Lanning has to work with. That's always going to play into your favor when you're recruiting one of the best quarterbacks in the country. And so I think that that is a key reason why Oregon is, in one of the teams in the driver's seat and why I was hesitant to put Jared Curtis into Georgia's mock class 1.0. But he takes that second half of the week visit to Georgia. And, some of the things that I start hearing make me start second guessing how I feel about that. I'm not ready to sit here right now and say I think that Georgia is going to get a commitment from Jared Curtis or that I think Georgia is the front runner to get Jared Curtis. But there's so much familiarity on Georgia's campus, whether that be with Mike Bobo, who he probably has the closest relationship of any coach recruiting him, whether that be Kirby Smart, whether that be just some of these off-the-field staffers or, players in the building. Like, you could tell, even just when we were out there at practice and we were around Jared Curtis, like, he interacts in a way like someone who feels like he's almost been part of Georgia's football program for multiple years. And the reason he feels that way is because he kind of has been part of Georgia's football program for multiple years. Like, he was committed to Georgia for so long. He's been at so many different variations of recruiting events. Like, I think that when he's on campus at Georgia, he feels like he's at home. In talking to some people around this recruitment and what I think are going to be the reasons formulating Jared Curtis's decision, proximity to home is definitely, it matters here. Like, getting to Eugene, Oregon and getting to Athens, Georgia are two entirely different things when you're from Nashville, Tennessee. There's a reason why he's been to Georgia as many times as he has, why his family has been to Georgia as many times as he has, and why his family really just doesn't have many experiences out in Eugene, Oregon. I do think that is something that I have undersold and underappreciated up to this point, and something that I have downplayed Georgia's advantage in that area. Like, it is something that definitely matters to the family that they are close to Georgia. And I think that proximity to home is definitely going to play a role. Now, just clearing the elephant in the room, because you can't talk about any recruitment nowadays without bringing up the NIL side of the conversation. And when you're talking about a five-star quarterback of his magnitude, like, that is going to be, to the fullest degree. Like, these are two programs, Oregon and Georgia, that are going to play ball for a guy like Jared Curtis. Now, what I think is interesting is neither of these teams, I don't think, view Jared Curtis as their starter in 2026. Like, I think that, Georgia's got Gunnar Stockton, Ryan Puglisi on campus. Oregon, they have Dante Moore. Who knows who else that they have behind him that they are feeling confident about as well. But I don't think that either team is approaching this like their 2026 starting quarterback is going to be Jared Curtis. And so one of the conversations that I've had around this is, in this new world of revenue share and what your quote unquote salary cap looks like it's risky business to be paying a quarterback $1.5 million in year one to go be your backup quarterback. Now 10% of your roster cap is being allotted to a guy that probably is not making an impact on your football team during that season. And so I think that's changing the way that these teams are having to approach these conversations. And so one thing that I think is a safe bet, Oregon's probably coming in with an offer over Georgia's when it comes to just the pure on paper coming out of the revenue share part of this agreement. And I think that Georgia has acknowledged that they are going to, maybe do even more than they're a little bit comfortable with there. And I don't know the specific figures, but I think they're going to go a little bit more than they're comfortable with there, because this is someone that they feel like is worth it. And he's not the only person in this class that they feel that way about. I mean, Jackson Cantwell is an offensive lineman. Mark Bowman is a tight end. Tyler Atkinson is a linebacker. Savion Hyder's a running back. Like, these are all guys that I think are going to demand pretty high value recruitments, and Georgia wants to be involved in all of them. And so they're going to try and find a way to do so. But, in Jared Curtis's case, I don't think Georgia's willing to really move forward with anything until they get an answer there. And that's not just at the quarterback position. Like, that's anywhere. I think you kind of have to know how much are you devoting to your quarterback position before you figure out what that's going to mean for your quote unquote salary cap everywhere else. And so I think that's why Jared Curtis had this March visit that's essentially being approached as an official visit. He does not have a timeline set out for when he is going to make that final decision, but I am told that they'd rather get this over sooner rather than later. They've grown weary of the recruiting process. When I say they, I mean Jared Curtis, I mean his family, I mean his agents, just the entire group team that is being a part of this decision. I think they're ready for this thing to wind down, and that's why you've seen this handled the way that you have this month. Honestly, Jordan, if I were making a mock class right now, and I will probably do one before spring practice is complete. So I don't know if Jared will have a decision by the end of March or not, but I think April 1st, I'll probably have my mock class 2.0. And as we sit here on March 19th, I think that I would have Jared Curtis in there just based on some of the things that I've been hearing. And, Georgia's trying to tackle the NIL conversation head on. I know that they had some important meetings or just some fun little tidbits from Jared's visit. Like, what did he get into? What did he do? I know that he had a really rigorous film session with Mike Bobo. I'm pretty sure it was pretty early in the morning where they broke down a lot of what they, scheme, how they see Jared fitting in, what they've seen from him from his junior highlight tape, and how that will translate. Like, they got a lot of that in. But I know that Georgia's trying to tackle the NIL conversation head on. And, one thing that I know Georgia prides itself on is helping generate these real name, image, and likeness deals for their most marketable players like Malachi Starks and Brock Bowers and Stetson Bennett and JT Daniels and people through the years that had true name, image, and likeness marketability. Jared Curtis, of course, is someone that falls into that camp. And so I know that they were, Georgia prides itself on really over 50% of the NIL deals that have been generated for Georgia players has been through that style of marketing deal, less so than just money directly from the collective. And I think that makes Georgia unique in that respect. They're not alone. Other schools do a great job of that as well. I'm not saying that Georgia is the only one, but I think Georgia definitely prides itself on its ability to do that. And so I think, letting Jared know, hey, if you want to come to a program where you're going to win and you're going to be the guy eventually, and they have a proven production of developing quarterbacks through the years, eventually your marketability being at a program like Georgia is going to, be there beyond, what's being provided via the rev share agreement. Now, Oregon is definitely in that consideration as well. So there's a reason why both of those types of schools are the ones that he's deciding between. But yeah, I know nobody's sitting here actually, people listening to this are probably asking me for a prediction right now. But I think I favor Georgia, but it really is a coin flip. I think anybody saying that they have an answer one way or the other is guessing. And this is March 19th. Could it be different on March 20th or March 21st? Sure. But on March 19th, I really think that anybody is guessing in terms of which direction they think that he's going. But the more that I have conversations about how receptive they are to some of the NIL conversations that they've had with Georgia, as well as the proximity to home and how much Georgia is prioritizing him. Yeah, I think I like where Georgia's at right now.